In this video, you are going to see how to create your stained glass symmetry and how to measure that so that you can get going on creating your actual design. To begin with, as we do with measuring, you're going to put the ruler up at the top corner of the page. Make sure that that black line right there is lined up with the edge and that 11 is over on the other side. The size of your project is going to be 8 inches by 8 inches. So we need to make a dash right at 8 inches. And then when properly measuring, remember, just drop the ruler down to the bottom of the page. Don't turn it around, don't flip the paper. Just drop that ruler to the bottom and make another mark at 8 inches. 8 inches is a good measurement because it keeps things nice and even for us, and the measuring becomes simpler than if we were to do a smaller design. So I have my far edge created. Then we're going to turn the paper 90 degrees. And from the top corner, I'm going to line up my ruler, make sure that black line is right on the edge. And then I'm going to make a mark at 8 inches. Make sure you're really paying attention to that long, dark black line where 8 is going to sit. Drop your ruler down to the line that you just made before. Line up the black line at the edge of the paper, line up the number 8, and then connect those. This is the space where you're going to be drawing your project, is inside of this square right here. So now we need to create our lines of symmetry. Remember, you should have multiple lines of symmetry. We're going to create 2 of them. So now along the line I drew here, you can see I'm going to line up, and I know that half of 8 is 4, so I'm going to make a dash at 4 inches so that I know it's nice and half. Double check that measurement, it was a little off. Yep. Make sure you really pay attention, and then drop your ruler down again. Make sure 8's lined up with the line that you drew, and the beginning of the ruler is at the edge of the paper. Make another mark at 4 inches. Pencil down, line up, and connect the 2. Now I can rotate this paper 90 degrees again. It's nice to always have the measuring part that I'm working on above me. Again, edge of the paper is where the ruler starts, and 8 is on the line that we created. Make a dash at 4 inches. We're just splitting the 8 in half to create a 4-inch section. And drop that ruler down to the bottom without turning the page or flipping the ruler, and make another dash at 4 inches. Then I'm going to connect these again. If you want your symmetry lines to be in the project, then you probably won't be erasing them. But if in the future you don't want them there, you might be erasing them. Because of that, you need to pay attention and be careful that you are not drawing too dark and too intense. So keep that in mind as you do this project. The next step is to start creating designs. Now, to have minimum 2 lines of symmetry, you're going to have to repeat a lot of what happens in squares multiple times. If I were to draw something in this corner, and I flip it along this edge, it has to also be drawn in this corner. And then if I'm flipping it along this line of symmetry, then I know that I would then need it here and here. So most things that you draw once, you will be drawing 3 more times. Now, you could create a diagonal line of symmetry. I usually do not, but what I want you to do is put your pencil in the center of this plus sign line it up to the edge, and then make sure that each corner of your ruler is touching the corner of your square. If it's not, then you did not measure an 8 by 8 inch square, and you'll need to check those measurements. When creating your different designs, be thoughtful and try to be creative about what other and interesting things you could make. You will need to measure some things. So for example, if I line up down here on the bottom, you can follow along with me. I'm going to make sure 4 is right in the middle, 8's on the edge, and the beginning of the measurements over there on the left. I'm going to measure over a ½ inch, so I make a dash at 4.5 and at 4.5. And then I'm going to line up my ruler along the central line of symmetry there and drop down an inch. Now, you can see that you're basically just playing connect the dots. I'm going to double check that my pencil's right on the line of symmetry, and then I can connect it to the dashes that I made. And I can create a triangle shape. Now I would have to repeat that same shape multiple times because I've drawn it once. To have minimum 2 lines of symmetry, I'm going to have to think about that again. I went over a ½ inch, so 4.5 and 3.5. And then my ruler also went down. Line that up quick. And I went down 1 inch. And then you can just connect those lines. You can see how just repeating that on every section, so you have made sure to have minimum 2 lines of symmetry. Of course, doing it on this line right here also gives us 4 lines of symmetry. There will be some times that to do 4 lines of symmetry, you'll have to pay attention about where lines are going even more. Remember, 4 lines of symmetry is the extension. If you want to have 4 lines of symmetry, you can, but the requirement is 2. Lining up one final time, you'll notice the beginning of the ruler, the 4 inches in the middle, and 8 over here on the edge. 4.5, I make a mark. 3.5, I make a mark. Move my ruler vertical. Line it up so that 8 is on the edge of the paper, 4 is in the middle, and beginning of the ruler's there, and I drop down 1 inch. And then I can connect those lines. So you can measure different aspects in different sections, and that will give you a repeated design. If I didn't want to keep these, I could erase them, and then it would be a single shaped triangle to color in using my value and shading. You can also use already pre-made measurements, and let's say you wanted to connect things together, you could easily do that. This is going to create a large diamond shape in the middle of my project. You can see how some measurements you can just reuse so that you are not constantly having to remeasure things. Notice that created a large diamond shape in my project. Now I want you to spend the rest of class and come up with ideas that you could then build upon in this project. How could you move through and create different designs and make your project interesting based on this start? This will not be your final project. You'll start another piece